Jack Miller yawned as he wiped grease from his hands. The old tractor engine had finally started working after 3 hours of repairs. At 32, Jack had spent most of his life fixing things in this small workshop behind his grandfather's farmhouse in Meadowbrook, Montana. People knew him as the guy who could fix almost anything with enough time and the right tools. The summer night was quiet as Jack locked up his workshop. Stars filled the clear sky above the empty fields. He enjoyed these peaceful moments after a long day of work. His simple one-story house sat at the edge of his property, with woods stretching behind it. Jack had just fallen asleep when a bright flash of light filled his bedroom. The light was followed by a sound like thunder that shook the walls. He jumped out of bed and ran to the window. In the distance, smoke rose from the woods behind his property. Something was burning. "What the hell was that?" he muttered, grabbing his flashlight from the bedside table. Curiosity won over caution. Jack pulled on his boots and a jacket over his t-shirt and jeans. He grabbed his heavy-duty flashlight and trusty red toolbox before heading into the woods. The smell of burnt wood and something strange, like metal and electricity, filled the air. Jack followed a path of broken trees and disturbed earth. Whatever had crashed had cut a long path through the forest. After walking about half a mile, he stopped suddenly, his mouth falling open in shock. Before him sat what could only be described as a spaceship. It wasn't very large, maybe the size of a small bus, but its sleek, silver-blue metal gleamed under the moonlight. Part of its side was torn open, revealing strange lights and what looked like machinery inside. Small fires burned around it, and a trail of odd, glowing liquid leaked from one end. "This can't be real," Jack whispered to himself, taking a step closer. As if responding to his movement, a section of the ship's side slid open with a soft hissing sound. Jack froze, his heart pounding in his chest. He considered running but found himself unable to move as a figure appeared in the opening. The figure stumbled forward and fell to the ground just a few feet from where Jack stood. His flashlight revealed that it looked mostly human. 2 arms, 2 legs, a head, but definitely wasn't human. The person, or creature, was clearly female in shape, but her skin had a light purple color that seemed to glow faintly in the darkness. Her hair was silver white and moved strangely, almost as if it were floating in water. When she looked up at Jack, her eyes were large, with irises that shifted colors like oil on water. She said something in a language that sounded like music and clicks. Her voice was both beautiful and completely foreign. Blood, or something like it, but with a bluish tint, ran from a cut on her forehead. She tried to stand but fell back down, clearly hurt. Jack hesitated only for a moment before setting down his toolbox and moving toward her. He had no idea what she was or where she came from, but she needed help. That was something he understood perfectly. "It's okay," he said softly, knowing she probably couldn't understand him. "I'm going to help you." The alien girl flinched when he came closer but then relaxed slightly. She pointed toward her damaged ship and made more musical sounds, her eyes filled with what Jack could only interpret as desperation. Then she reached out and touched his hand. Her skin felt warm, but with a slight vibration, like touching something with a gentle electric current. In that moment, Jack knew his life would never be the same again. Whatever had fallen from the sky had landed specifically in his woods, and now he had to decide what to do with an injured alien and her broken spaceship. Jack helped the alien girl to his truck. She moved carefully, clearly in pain from her crash landing. He looked back at the spaceship, knowing he couldn't leave it there for someone else to find. For now, the thick woods would hide it, but he would need to figure something out soon. At his house, the alien looked around with wide, color-changing eyes. She touched everything: the wooden table, the cloth couch, the glass windows, as if testing what they were made of. Jack found his first aid kit and tried to clean the cut on her forehead. She pulled back at first, but then allowed him to help. "I'm Jack," he said, pointing to himself. "Jack." The alien watched him carefully before touching her own chest. "Lyra," she said, or at least that's what it sounded like to Jack. Her voice had a musical quality that made even that simple word sound like part of a song. Lyra, Jack repeated. She nodded, seeming pleased that he had understood. For the next 3 days, they struggled to talk to each other. Lyra drew pictures on paper Jack gave her, trying to explain something about her ship. She made sounds like engines and used her hands to show explosions and damage. Jack nodded, understanding that her ship needed serious repairs. Lyra kept checking a small device on her wrist. It looked like a watch but displayed strange patterns and symbols that changed colors. She would look at it, tap it, and then look worried. When Jack brought her food, she sniffed everything before taking tiny bites. She enjoyed apples and bread but wouldn't touch meat. Water she drank happily, but when Jack offered her coffee, she took one sip and spit it out, making a face that made Jack laugh. At night, Lyra would stand by the windows, looking at the stars. Her fingers traced patterns in the sky that Jack didn't recognize. He wondered if she was looking toward her home. On the 4th day, Jack decided they needed to check on her ship. They drove back to the crash site, and Lyra moved quickly to her vessel. She pressed her hand against the side, and a panel opened. Inside, lights blinked and strange sounds came from the machinery. Lyra pointed to different parts of the ship, saying words in her language. Jack nodded, trying to understand. She showed him a damaged section where metal had torn open. Inside, crystals that should have glowed brightly were dark and cracked. "I can try to fix it," Jack said, even though he knew she didn't understand his words. He opened his toolbox and showed her his tools. Lyra looked doubtful, but nodded. That evening, back at the house, Lyra surprised Jack by speaking her first English word. "Fix," she said, pointing to a picture she had drawn of her ship. "You? Fix." Jack's eyes widened. "Yes. I'll try to fix it." Lyra smiled for the first time since her crash. Her smile made her whole face light up, and Jack noticed that her skin actually glowed slightly brighter when she was happy. Over the next few days, they developed their own language, part English, part Lyra's language, and many hand gestures. Jack learned that Lyra was something like a scientist. She had been studying Earth from far away when something went wrong with her ship. Jack took measurements and made notes about the damaged parts. Some things he could fix with materials he had, but others would need special parts. He wasn't sure where he would find alien technology on Earth. One morning, Jack woke to find Lyra sitting at his kitchen table, surrounded by small objects from her ship. When she saw him, she stood up excitedly. "Jack," she said, her pronunciation getting better. "I teach. You learn. We fix." And so began their real work together. A human mechanic and an alien scientist trying to repair a spaceship using whatever they could find on Earth. Neither knew if it was possible, but both were determined to try. After 2 weeks of planning, Jack and Lyra were ready to start fixing the ship. They had covered Jack's garage walls with drawings and diagrams. Lyra had taught him basic ideas about her ship's technology. Some of it was so advanced that Jack could hardly believe it was real. "This part," Lyra said, pointing to a drawing of what looked like an engine. Her English was improving daily. "It makes energy. Broken in crash." Jack studied the drawing. "I think I can rebuild the frame, but what about these?" He pointed to strange crystal-like objects in the center of the machine. Lyra frowned and pulled out a small device from her pocket. When she pressed a button, a 3D image appeared above it, floating in the air. Jack gasped. He had seen holograms in movies, but nothing this clear and detailed. "These are energy crystals," Lyra explained. "Very special. Need same elements." "Do those elements exist on Earth?" Jack asked. Lyra nodded. "Yes. In your computers, small amounts." Jack thought for a moment. "Like rare earth minerals." "In computer chips." "Yes." Lyra smiled, pleased that he understood. That afternoon, they drove to Jack's friend's electronics repair shop in town. Pete owned the shop and had piles of old computers and parts. "Hey Jack, what brings you here?" Pete asked. "Need some old circuit boards and processors. Working on a special project," Jack said, trying to sound casual. "Help yourself to the junk pile. $5 a pound." Jack selected several old devices, while Lyra waited in the truck, wearing a hoodie to hide her unusual features. On the way home, they stopped at a hardware store for tools and materials. Back at Jack's workshop, they spread everything out on the table. Lyra used a small laser-like tool from her ship to cut open the devices. She carefully removed tiny components and sorted them by type. "Good," she said, examining the pieces. "We have. Start now." Working together was challenging but fascinating. Lyra showed Jack how to melt down certain parts to extract the rare elements they needed. She had brought small tools from her ship that could do amazing things, like weld metal perfectly or analyze the chemical makeup of materials. Jack's years of fixing farm equipment and cars gave him skills that surprised Lyra. When they needed to build a frame for a new component, Jack designed it using simpler materials than Lyra's people would use, but they worked. "Creative," Lyra said, watching him bend metal into the shape they needed. "Your people, good at making things with simple tools." Jack smiled. "We make do with what we have." After a week of work, they had rebuilt one of the smaller damaged components. Lyra tested it with a device from her ship, and lights flashed green. "It works," Jack said, excited. Lyra made a musical sound that Jack had learned was her version of laughter. "Yes, works good. Now bigger parts." As the days passed, their teamwork improved. Lyra taught Jack more about her world between repair sessions. Her planet circled 2 suns, she explained. Her people had been traveling among stars for thousands of years. They studied other worlds but rarely made contact with less advanced species. "Why did you come to Earth?" Jack asked one evening as they sat on his porch, looking at the stars. Lyra was quiet for a moment. "To learn. Your world is interesting. Your people make big changes very fast." "Is that good or bad?" Jack asked. "Both," Lyra said. "Your people build amazing things but also hurt your planet. My people watch and wonder what you will become." Jack thought about that as they walked back to the workshop. The biggest challenge still waited for them. The main engine that powered Lyra's ship. It would require parts they couldn't find in junk computers. They would need something more specialized. "Tomorrow," Lyra said, pointing to a complex diagram. "We fixed this part." Jack studied it and frowned. "This will be much harder. We might need to visit a university or research lab to find what we need." Lyra touched her wrist device and nodded. "Must hurry. Time is running away." "Running out," Jack corrected gently. "Why? What's wrong?" Lyra looked at him with worry in her color-shifting eyes. "Others will come looking. Soon." Jack was testing a newly built component when he heard the sound of a car coming up his driveway. He looked out the workshop window and his heart jumped. It was Sheriff Keith Wilson's police truck. "Lyra, hide," Jack whispered urgently. "Someone's coming." Lyra quickly gathered their alien technology and slipped into the storage room at the back of the workshop. Jack closed the door just as a knock sounded on the main entrance. "Jack, you in there?" Sheriff Wilson called out. Jack took a deep breath and opened the door. "Hey Keith, what brings you out here?" The sheriff was a big man with a friendly face, but today he looked serious. "Just checking on you, Jack. Haven't seen you in town much lately. Pete at the electronics shop said you bought a bunch of computer parts. Then Mrs. Davis from down the road called about strange lights coming from your property at night." Jack tried to look casual. "Just working on a special project. You know how I get when I'm fixing something interesting." Keith nodded slowly, looking around the workshop. "Mind if I come in? Haven't seen your place in ages." Before Jack could answer, the sheriff had already stepped inside. Jack felt sweat forming on his forehead as Keith walked around, looking at the tools and parts scattered everywhere. "What are you building that needs all these computer chips?" Keith asked, picking up a circuit board. Trying to make a better system for farm equipment. You know, automated stuff." The lie came out awkwardly, and Jack knew it didn't sound convincing. Keith stopped near a table where Lyra had left a small alien tool. It looked almost like a pen, but with strange markings. Keith picked it up. "Never seen something like this before. What is it?" Jack's mind raced. "It's a specialized laser pointer for precision work." Just then, a soft thump came from the storage room. Keith turned his head. "What was that?" "Probably just my cat," Jack said quickly. "Gets into everything." Keith walked toward the storage room door, and Jack felt panic rising. If he discovered Lyra. Suddenly, Jack's phone rang loudly. Keith paused as Jack answered it, though there was no one actually calling. "Hello? Oh, hi, Mrs. Wilson. Yes, the sheriff is right here. Emergency at the diner. I'll tell him." Jack lowered the phone. "Keith, your wife just called. Says there's some kind of problem at the diner. Something about a fight breaking out." Keith frowned. "That's strange. She would have called me directly." As if on cue, Keith's radio crackled. "Sheriff, we got a situation at Daisy's Diner. Need you there ASAP." Keith looked surprised but nodded. "Duty calls. I'll check on you later, Jack. Take care of yourself." After Keith left, Lyra came out of hiding. She held up her wrist device. "I made message to police radio," she said. Jack stared at her. "You can do that." Lyra nodded. "Easy technology. But now problem. Your friend suspects." Jack agreed. "We need to speed things up. But we still need those special parts for the main engine." Lyra thought for a moment, then pointed to Jack's computer. "Search, university near here." Jack typed on his laptop. State University is about 50 miles away. They have an engineering department. They have what we need. Jack nodded slowly. "Probably. But we can't just walk in and take it." Lyra's eyes changed to a deep blue color, which Jack had learned meant she was thinking deeply. "Nighttime. Go when empty." Jack stared at her. "You mean break in? That's illegal." "Not steal," Lyra explained. "Borrow. I leave payment." She showed Jack a small crystal from her ship that glowed with inner light. "Worth much on your world." Jack didn't like the idea, but they were running out of options. That night, they drove to the university. The campus was mostly empty, with only a few security guards patrolling. Using Lyra's technology, they disabled the alarm system on the engineering building and slipped inside. The advanced physics lab had exactly what they needed: specialized superconducting materials and rare magnets used in experimental quantum computers. Lyra selected the pieces carefully while Jack kept watch. "Hurry," Jack whispered, hearing footsteps in the hallway. Just as they gathered the last component, the door handle turned. They froze as a security guard shined his flashlight into the room. They had nowhere to hide. Suddenly, all the lights in the building went out. In the darkness, Lyra grabbed Jack's hand. "Run now," she whispered. They escaped through a back door as confused shouts echoed behind them. Only when they were safely driving away did Jack ask, "What happened to the lights?" Lyra held up her wrist device. "Emergency function. Like your EMP, temporary only." Jack gripped the steering wheel tightly. That was too close. And now we're criminals. Lyra placed the glowing crystal on the dashboard. "Left payment. Worth more than what we took." 2 months had passed since Lyra crashed on Earth. The repairs on her ship were moving forward well, but something else was happening too. Jack and Lyra were becoming close friends. Each morning, they would work together on the ship. In the afternoons, they would take breaks to rest and talk. Jack taught Lyra about Earth, showing her books and videos on his laptop. Lyra was especially interested in music. She would close her eyes and sway when Jack played his old rock records. "This sound, beautiful," she said one evening as classic rock filled the living room. "We have music too, but not like this." "What's your music like?" Jack asked. Lyra made a series of musical tones with her voice that changed in ways Jack had never heard before. It was beautiful but completely foreign. "That's amazing," Jack said. "You could be a singer here." Lyra laughed. "My voice. Normal for my people." They shared meals together, discovering that Lyra loved certain earth foods. Strawberry ice cream became her favorite treat. Her face would light up, literally with a soft glow, when Jack brought it home from the store. One day, Jack showed Lyra photos of his parents, who had died years ago. "They were good people," he said quietly. "Dad taught me how to fix engines. Mom taught me to be kind to everyone." "They teach you well," Lyra said, touching his hand gently. Her skin always felt warm, with that slight vibration Jack had gotten used to. Later that week, Lyra showed Jack images of her world using a small projector from her ship. Jack watched in wonder as 3D pictures appeared in the air. Twin suns rising over crystal cities, strange animals that looked like a mix of birds and fish flying through purple skies, and forests with trees that glowed at night. "Your world is beautiful," Jack said. "You must miss it." Lyra nodded. "Yes. But Earth, interesting too. And you?" She paused, seeming to search for the right word. "You good friend." As they worked together, they developed their own way of communicating. Jack would start a sentence, and Lyra would finish it. They could pass tools to each other without speaking, somehow knowing what the other needed. They had created a language of their own, part English, part Lyra's alien language, and many hand gestures that only they understood. One night, after they successfully fixed the main power system of the ship, they celebrated by watching the stars from Jack's porch. The night was clear, and thousands of stars filled the Montana sky. "Which one is your sun?" Jack asked. Lyra pointed to a distant star. "There. Not see well without telescope. Very far." "How long did it take you to travel here?" "Time different in space travel," Lyra explained. "For me, few days only." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Lyra turned to Jack with serious eyes. "Jack," she said softly, "want to show you something. From my culture." Before Jack could respond, Lyra moved closer and gently placed her forehead against his. Her skin began to glow brighter, and Jack felt a strange but pleasant warmth spread through his mind. Images flashed in his thoughts: stars, planets, feelings of wonder, curiosity, and a deep gratitude. The connection lasted only seconds, but when Lyra pulled away, Jack felt different somehow. "What was that?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Connection ritual," Lyra explained. "How my people share deep feelings, gratitude, friendship." Her cheeks glowed a deeper purple, which Jack had learned was her version of blushing. That night, Jack dreamed of worlds he had never seen: oceans of silver liquid under 3 moons, mountains that floated in the air, and creatures of light that danced among clouds. When he woke, he somehow knew these weren't just dreams, but memories from Lyra's mind that she had shared with him. Their connection had become something neither of them had expected. Not quite human friendship, not quite alien bonding, but something new, a bridge between 2 worlds. 4 months after the crash, Lyra's ship was almost ready to fly again. Jack stood back and looked at their work with pride. The torn metal had been fixed, the crystal energy core was glowing with power, and all systems were working. Only the final connections needed to be made. "We did it," Jack said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "I still can't believe it." Lyra nodded, her eyes shifting to a bright green color that Jack knew meant she was excited. "Yes, ship ready soon." But there was something sad in her voice too. That evening, Lyra surprised Jack by asking him to come aboard her ship for the first time. Until now, they had taken parts to Jack's workshop to fix them. This would be Jack's first time seeing the inside of an alien spacecraft. "You sure?" Jack asked. "I thought there were rules about showing humans your technology." "Rules, yes," Lyra admitted. "But you, special case, you help me. I trust you." Jack's heart beat faster as he followed Lyra into her ship. Inside, it was both strange and beautiful. The walls looked metallic but felt warm and slightly soft to the touch. Lights glowed from no clear source, and control panels showed symbols Jack couldn't understand. "This is amazing," Jack whispered as Lyra showed him around. The main control room had a single seat surrounded by floating screens of light. Lyra touched one, and it came alive with colors and moving patterns. "Ship systems, all green," she said. "Engine power at 90%. Enough for flight. And jump." "Jump?" Jack asked. "Space jump. How we travel. Very far distances. Like your stories of warp speed." Jack nodded, thinking of all the science fiction movies he had watched. "So you'll be able to go home now?" "Yes." Lyra's voice was quiet. She turned to face Jack fully. "Need tell you truth now." Jack felt a strange tension in the air. "What truth?" Lyra took a deep breath. "My people, watching Earth long time. Many years. We study humans from far away. Debate if humans ready for contact." "Contact? You mean like official first contact? Meeting aliens openly?" Jack was shocked. "Yes, some say humans too. Violent. Not ready. Others say humans have potential. Good hearts." She touched her chest. "I was sent to observe only. Not crash. Not meet humans." Jack tried to process this information. "So I wasn't supposed to meet you at all?" "No. Big accident. But now." She paused, looking at him with her shifting eyes. "Now I know good human. You help me without question. Ask nothing in return. This important information for my people." Before Jack could respond, a loud beeping came from Lyra's wrist device. Her eyes widened as she checked it. "What's wrong?" Jack asked. "Ship coming," Lyra said urgently. "My people. Search party. They detect my ship's power now that systems online." Jack felt a chill run through him. "Are we in trouble?" Lyra looked worried. "Maybe. I break rules. Contact with human. Share technology. They might." She didn't finish the sentence. "What can we do?" Jack asked. Lyra thought for a moment, then moved quickly to a storage area of the ship. She pressed her hand against a panel, and it slid open. Inside was a small compartment filled with strange objects. Lyra selected a crystal that pulsed with blue-white light. "Not much time," she said. "Ship will arrive in 6 hours. We must finish repairs now. Then," she looked at the crystal in her hand, "then I must decide." "Decide what?" Jack asked. Lyra met his eyes steadily. "What to give you. What to tell my people. How to protect you." Jack felt like everything was happening too fast. For months they had worked toward fixing Lyra's ship. Now that it was almost done, he realized he wasn't ready for her to leave, and he definitely wasn't ready to meet more aliens. "Let's finish the repairs," he said finally. "Then we'll figure out the rest." Together they walked back to the engine room, both knowing that by morning everything would change. The last night of their time together had begun, and neither knew what the new day would bring. Jack and Lyra worked through the night, completing the final repairs to her ship. As dawn approached, they both knew their time together was ending. The ship was fully functional again. "It's done," Jack said, closing the last panel. He felt proud of their work, but sad that Lyra would leave soon. Lyra checked her wrist device again. Other ship very close now. 1 hour only. They walked outside to look at the sky. It was still dark, with stars visible overhead. Somewhere up there, more of Lyra's people were approaching Earth. Lyra turned to Jack with serious eyes. "Jack, must give you something now." She led him back into her ship and opened the special compartment from earlier. The blue-white crystal she had shown him before was still pulsing with light. She picked it up carefully. "This crystal, very special," she explained, "contains knowledge, science information, energy technology, medicine, things your people might discover for 100 years. Jack's eyes widened. "You're giving this to me. Isn't that against your rules?" "Yes. Big rules broken." Lyra nodded. "But I decide. Worth it." She placed the crystal in Jack's hand. It felt warm and seemed to vibrate gently against his skin. The light pulsed in rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. "But that's not all," Lyra continued. "Remember when we touch foreheads? Connection ritual." Jack nodded. "I had dreams of your world after that." "Not just dreams. I scan you then, your body." Lyra's voice became softer. "Found something bad. Disease starting in you. What you call cancer. Small now. Your doctor's not fine for 2 years. Then too late." Jack felt his breath catch. "I have cancer." "Had," Lyra corrected. "Crystal has tiny machines. Nanites. They fix you already. Clean the bad cells. Make you healthy." Jack couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You cured me, without even telling me." "Yes. Also make you live longer. Maybe 40 more years than normal human." Lyra touched his arm gently. "My thank you for helping me." Jack felt overwhelmed. The crystal in his hand contained technology that could change human history, and Lyra had secretly cured him of a disease he didn't even know he had. "Why would you do this?" he asked. "You're breaking all your rules." Lyra's skin glowed brighter, showing her emotions. "Because you show me something important. My real mission was to decide if humans ready for contact, if humans good or bad for universe. You answer this question." Before Jack could respond, a bright light appeared in the sky. It grew larger quickly, moving toward them. "They hear," Lyra said. "I must go now." They walked outside as the other ship descended silently, hovering above the trees. It was larger than Lyra's ship and shaped differently, with glowing rings around its middle. "What will you tell them?" Jack asked. "Truth. That one human helped me. That humans have good hearts. Maybe ready for contact soon." She looked at the crystal in Jack's hand. "Use knowledge slowly. Share carefully. Help your world." Jack nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility. "I will." "One more thing," Lyra said. "Crystal has messages, how to call me, if you need." Jack felt tears in his eyes. "I'll miss you." Lyra touched her forehead to his one last time. Jack felt warmth and images flowing between them, memories of their time together, feelings of gratitude and friendship, and something else that had no name in human language. When she pulled away, her eyes were shifting colors rapidly. "Goodbye, Jack Miller. Remember me." "Always," Jack promised. Lyra walked to her ship and turned once more to wave. Then she entered and the door closed behind her. Jack stepped back as both ships rose into the air, glowing brightly against the dawn sky. In seconds, they accelerated upward and vanished, leaving only a faint trail of light. Jack stood alone, holding the crystal. His life had changed forever. He had fixed an alien girl's ship, and her reward had not only saved his life, but might help save his entire world. Looking up at the empty sky, Jack smiled. This wasn't an ending. It was just the beginning.